conditions here.
It is chaos and carnage on the Hawaii Dog.
This is fantastic sailing.
Team New Zealand are in a magnificent position. What a thriller it has been.
Left is huge.
Okay, have a good one, guys.
Still heavy pin favorite.
The 5-minute gun around the end. Race 1, Louis Vuitton Cup Final 2003.
Be ready for trimming on
Coming in from
So the tide under
the starboard hand, Oracle, skippered by Chris Dixon.
Ready, guys? Get
Coming
ready
in
to
from
trim
the
on.
port hand, Alinghi, skippered by Russell Coots.
Hold that.
It's 10 knots from 30 degrees.
He's very fast here, guys.
Here comes the dial up from Alinghi. Alinghi to the left. We heard the voice of Yacht and Schumann coming off Alinghi saying how strong it was out to the left, and that reinforces the comments of my friend Ed Baird, who just 2 minutes ago said, PJ, it is very strong on the left.
Pete, we're just seeing this breeze fill down from the left-hand side, and we've seen a 20-degree left-hand shift in the last 5 minutes. So right now, we're as far left as we've been in the last half an hour. The breeze is building again, which tells me there's a little more pressure on the left-hand side, and it's just now filling through.
Oracle to the right. Peter Holmberg as starting helmsman. The fascinating thing to watch in the next 3.5 minutes, how deep Alinghi goes,
Be patient. We will
and
go
how
on
much of a
starboard here.
confrontation and combat can Peter Holmberg get Oracle in against Alinghi.
Well, you can see the boats are head to wind right there. Peter had aims at the pin, at the white mark on the lower side of the screen there. Shows you how much favored that end of the line is. So they'll definitely be fighting for that end.
Okay, cut. Just want to live on starboard, guys. Just a little starboard is all.
That voice there is Peter Holmberg, starting helmsman Oracle.
All right, Alinghi's making their move to get out of this one now. They'll have to spin all the way around and stay clear of Oracle. So you see the mainsail going out. The Genoa trimmed hard to spin the front of the boat around in the breeze.
Go ahead, Maine. Go Maine. Go Maine.
Go ahead, Maine. That's Peter Holmberg on Oracle.
He wants to get speed on and drive around on the backside of Alinghi. Alinghi's been in trouble from the beginning of this pre-start, really for 2 reasons. One, they came in from the slower end or the upwind end of the line and didn't have a real strong position early. And 2, they've got this real small rudder that we all saw on the unveiling day, and it's hard for them to get moving once they've stopped.
Oracle getting underneath Alinghi. 2 minutes 10 to the start.
Clear.
Well, Oracle's done a nice job in positioning there. I don't think Alinghi can get a jibe off with Oracle's proximity, so Alinghi's going for the committee boat. They'll use the space of the committee boat to try and get a little gap to get that jibe off and turn back.
1 minute 50 at the start. Alinghi going around the bow, are they? Of race control. Oracle's got underneath them. So boat around the bow of the boat. Oracle turns inside.
Now a bit unconventional here, Peter, but basically what's happening is Oracle's leading back from a quite early position that won't seem that early in just a few seconds.
1 minute 20 to the start. Both boats out by race control on the right-hand side of the course. Oracle back inside race control. Alinghi coming around the stern of the race committee boat.
Yeah. Easy to get over him. Easy to get over him. Clear.
Coming to 1 minute now to the start. It looks like Oracle is trying to get on the lead back up to the pin end of the line.
Hey, guys. Hang on now.
Can't get to you, Pete. Can't get to
Going
you.
deep.
Hold the way, Bob. He's
He's locked, Pete.
They've got to kill the time about 20 seconds and 30 seconds at the start. They've got to kill 20 seconds of that. Both coming hit to win. Killing time. It looks like Alinghi's going to live on the hip of Oracle. And 15 seconds to the start.
Cannot swing.
Geordie Shaver calling Peter Holmberg up out to the third. Alinghi right up on the hip. 3, 2, 1, the start. Race 1. Lawyer Tom Cup Final 2003. And Oracle down to Lou in the head, but Alinghi has been right up on the hip and immediately they tack away.
That's good.
Now, for everybody watching, it would not surprise me to see this be a bit of a split. I just see better breeze to the left. I don't see the big urgency for Oracle to tack right back. They're already ahead by a little bit. Very nice starting position. But there's better breeze left-hand side in the short term.
Now Chris Dixon has taken the helm of Oracle after a very nice job by Peter Holmberg, who got out to the pin. But it was interesting that Oracle getting the favoured pin in, and you could see that going a little better and lighter from Brad Butterworth. But that's a typical tactic, isn't it, of Butterworth and Coots? If they're going to get beaten for it, they'll shut it down and keep the damage to a minimum.
Definitely that was not the start they would have preferred, but it minimized any gain that Oracle might have made by being right at the strongest position right off the line. Now here comes Oracle tacking back to try and cement that position in front. And Alinghi is certainly up to full speed by now, but the boats are separated a bit, so any shift to the right would gain Alinghi. Any pressure or shift to the left would gain Oracle.
Nice fresh.
So Oracle with the advantage by a boat length over Alinghi. That goes back to the very nice start.
Just watch it here. Here on the top.
Yeah, let's take the second.
So here comes Alinghi on the tack. We're going to have the first cross. Now this is the key. It's all very well who wins the start, but who gets the first cross? How do we think Peter Holmberg has set up Oracle very well for the first cross? Remember, Alinghi does have the starboard hand advantage. So it is Alinghi to the right, Oracle to the left on the first cross, race 1 of the Louis Vuitton Cup
Just watch it, because we
final.
do want to protect the right-hand side.
Only because of the time. Only because of the time.
Only because of the...
Happy to keep going.
You're going to put him about here, Russ. It's all right.
So Oracle is going to tack down to Louis ahead. You see, Brad Butterworth saying we do want to protect the right-hand side. So we'll get be it to translate all that. Alinghi now is in a very good position. They're in the windward position. They're right off the hip here. Now this has got
Still faster.
Brad Butterworth's coming. Cootsy's faster. Now if Alinghi can roll Oracle, Oracle needs to really lift it up. This is where incredible skill of steering. Alinghi's doing beautifully. This is where the incredible skill of the steering and the trim, they need to get powered up. If Alinghi can get advanced by another 2-3 meters, they can roll over the top of Oracle. Oracle needs to be 2 to 3 meters out to spit Alinghi out.
Well, a little bit of a right-hand shift since the start, so Alinghi has gained.
Butterworth saying we are quicker.
Run it down two. Come on, mate.
Now you can see Alinghi starting to struggle right there. Oracle in a strong position, but if this breeze keeps shifting to the right, it's going to help Alinghi. As you see right there, it looks like they just got a little pressure from the right.
Keep it coming in and out.
Alinghi technically in the lead, but if they have to tack because of the swirling air of Oracle, it'll be back to basically even again.
And notice how Dixon has brought the bow down on Oracle. They're much more bow down as they're trying to shoot the bow out. They're trying to get the bow out. Can Alinghi live there? This is enthralling stuff.
Well, they've done a nice job in the last few seconds on Alinghi to separate a little bit to windward and not lose any speed front to back. So they certainly seem like they're getting an advantage at the moment.
Alinghi just showing that they got the option of taking the height, or if they want to advance ahead, they got the speed. Since they did the port starboard on that first cross, Alinghi have just literally powered away to now it looks like they've got around a 2.5 length advantage. Alinghi have got the pace.
Yeah, it's there, it's there. He's just checking it right now.
And Virtual Spectator certainly bears that out. We can see there the advantage now out to 3 boat lengths. Alinghi with the blue trail in the top right hand of the screen. And the feature we have this time, identifying the yachts with their names and their country flags. But if we come up to the course view to see what's actually been happening since the start, and we can see there's been an enormous wind shift around to the right. If we lay the wind on now, we can see it's further round to the east now. Down at the bottom of the course, we actually saw the breeze coming from more this direction here. We now have it coming from this direction, so that's about a 30-degree shift to the right. So Alinghi with the blue trail, by virtue of the fact they've been on the inside of that right-hand shift, they've really been able to capitalise. They had good boat speed there. Out of the start, they were able to just hang on, and coming underneath the water now we can see there we have it. There's the keel that was revealed last week with the very cute cow graphics on it. I believe they may have been removed now, but certainly that's what the keel on Alinghi looks like, that very long, deep, narrow rudder. Russell Coote's doing everything he can to minimise the turning of that, and away in the distance there we can see that's the underwater configuration of Oracle.
Now already we can see both boats carrying new mainsails with this characteristic very, very big headboard on the top of the sail is larger than what we've seen before.
So he's just always in more right, is he?
All in the effort to jam a bit more sail area into the rig. And with the big right-hand shift that Virtual Spectator showed, we're still seeing Alinghi just motoring away. Team New Zealand out practicing, but Alinghi have got the pace.
Trying to keep it close. Long race ahead.
Alinghi tacking. They're estimating that they're very close to the lay line to the top mark. That's why they're tacking away.
Yeah, we are. 3 left. 2 left.
Mark 1, Louis Vuitton Cup final race 1. Alinghi skippered by Russell Coote. Lead round the mark. Here's the hoist. Josh Belsky calling out the shots from the pit. Super hoist from Alinghi. As they harness the breeze at just 8 knots now.
He's just bear away too, so.
Chris Dixon talking about a bear away. Well, this has been a very, very good first leg for Oracle. The key question is how much of this is boat speed and how much was wind shift and placement. Certainly no doubt Alinghi has benefited by the wind shift. As Oracle round Mark 1, 47 seconds behind, and the wind continues to drop under 8 knots for the first time. Now 7.7. And here's the hoist from Oracle, both boats on the fairway with their asymmetric spin.
Well, Peter, part of that wind speed drop is the fact that there's so many spectators on the race course today. They're certainly affecting the wind a little bit, but it's the same for both boats. They'll be a little bit soft getting away from the weather mark, and then they'll be back into clear air halfway down the run.
Coming now. Big puff. And
Oracle sailing well down this leg. The yellow trail there we can see down to 5 lengths now. Just looking at the difference in angles there, they've been able to sail a little bit deeper, a little bit faster. While Alinghi there just sailing a little bit closer to the wind. It was around 185 metres, so it's a 2.5 length gain to Oracle there. And looking at it there, that's the difference in course. Oracle just sailing deeper and faster, and everything that we thought about the underwater configuration of Oracle, a less draggy boat, certainly seems to be paying off here. Looking at them, they're just chomping away at Alinghi's lead.
Yeah, right now it's quite a lift. I think we should stand.
Brad Butterworth
Get a jibe.
setting himself up for a jibe, calling the jibe,
Okay.
lifted wind direction, which will equate to headed wind direction on the opposite jibe.
Yep.
Diving.
Brad's quite anxious to get the jibe. Here we go, here's the manoeuvre. First jibe of the finals.
Up your radio.
Yet a hard yard being done by the grinders on board Oracle, Alinghi.
Cap on what we see.
Now, what was interesting there that Oracle
What's
had
Cameron seeing
elected
again?
to just carry on. They didn't want to try and put the wind shadow down onto
So
Alinghi.
it could go softer this way in the next 5 minutes. And pretty even the other way, maybe slightly more and further up the track.
Well,
It's pretty even.
certainly the delta or the difference between the boats looks like it has reduced. Now, the interesting thing here is that lateral separation,
And there's a little
that leverage that Alinghi have given Oracle.
shadow where
So the afterguard of Alinghi must be confident that they're on the
Breeze at
gaining
40, mate.
board to the bottom mark.
And that virtual spectator showed quite graphically that Alinghi has picked up a wee bit of left-hand shift, so they're putting their bow down closer to the mark. Meanwhile, we see on-board Oracle here preparing for the jibe peel. What they do here is the new spinnaker, the new Jenica is going up, it's walled. Chris Dixon's starting to turn the boat now. The new sail will set. The old one, there's the new one set, the old one's just dropped down on top of it. Just watch how they do this. That is a lot of sail area to get back on board the boat. But a very, very smooth job. That's a textbook example of the jibe peel. In the sewer there, hauling the old sail down. Around 450 square metres of Jenica.
Well, this may well be a vital time in this race. Jibe peel on board Oracle. Quite a bit of separation. Alinghi heading the right way. Do they retain their advantage?
Alinghi had jumped away. I think Oracle might have just missed a bit of a wind shift.
Yeah, it's still
And
easy.
now Alinghi are right down on the lay
just the right
line
of the
to the
sailboat.
bottom mark on the starboard lay line, and Oracle through going further and then doing the jibe peel have actually are coming back on a reach to the bottom mark. So Russell Coots and team picked that starboard lay line perfectly, and they have extended.
Well, we heard on the way into the windward mark, Peter, that Murray Jones was saying they wanted to jibe fairly early. They liked the pressure on the opposite side, and then they didn't do it. They sailed for a long, long time on the same jibe as Oracle, and when Alinghi finally did jibe, they were within a couple or 3 minutes of the edge of the course, and I'm surprised to have seen that Oracle didn't go with them. Alinghi escaped into the center of the course, and then that breeze that Murray had seen earlier started to fill down, and now we've actually had the pressure increase back up to 8.5, 9 knots. But more than that, we've seen also about a 40-degree wind shift to the left, or the top of the screen, basically in this picture, which has just massively gained for Alinghi.
Oracle's more powered up.
Well, Oracle's overlaid by quite a bit, so they're having to reach up higher. It's a faster angle of sail. The boat goes faster through the water, but they've wasted all the distance that they sailed before they jibed, after Alinghi jibed, and they're not going enough faster to make up for that extra distance sailed.
Bean tips in the bow of Alinghi.
Not off.
Mark 2. Alinghi leading by 47 seconds at Mark 1.
Yep, go, Trent, go.
Here comes the drop on Alinghi.
Okay, going up, going up.
You know, Peter, I bet on that cross when Alinghi jibed away, I'll bet there was only 15 or 20 seconds in it at that point. Oracle had caught up quite a bit on the early part of that downwind leg.
We already got top, that's right.
But Alinghi is out, stretched out to a comfortable margin again here.
It was 47 seconds at Mark 1, and the Louis Vuitton clock clicks over 50 seconds. Again to Alinghi on leg 2.
Go early, Genoa, because we're fast, obviously.
The signal in the background for the course to 040 as Chris Dixon calls, and they click off at 1:23. So again to Alinghi between Mark 1 at 47 seconds, now out to 1:23.
Go ahead, I'll finish it for you.
They are sailing into a building breeze.
Release fresh.
We've had reports of 14 knots further up the course. That was the forecast, up to 19 knots at the end of the day.
Not the most pleasant of days for Larry Allison, 17th man on board Oracle.
Well, Oracle to me,
Got out you go, Bob.
I just don't know if they're fast enough. Looking at Alinghi, even on this course, as they go out now on Port Tack, just seems to be going a little bit higher, a little bit faster, and then being able to swap that over if they want to sail in a slightly different mode. Alinghi, again,
In the office already?
looks very tidy. We can see there the new mainsail that both boats are supporting, these very square top mainsails to cram a bit more sail area into the package.
What have you got as a bearing to the top, Ernesto?
Great Butterworth. Just wanting the compass bearing to the top mark.
I'm just finding it.
Simon Daubney down to leeward there, the only person with his weight to leeward,
It's yellow, right? Yeah.
looking up the back of the Genoa, trimming it. The rest of the crew all tucked into windward underneath the gunnel, keep windage down. As evidence there, we can only see 2 or 3 people above the gunnel there. Russell Coots, Murray Jones, Brad Butterworth, everyone else tucked in underneath to keep the windage down. And Alinghi doing it with ease at the moment, looking very smooth. It's a combination of outstanding tactics in these very tricky conditions, and a lot of that can be attributed to Murray Jones and of course Brad Butterworth.
It's the first of our finals for the Louis Vuitton Cup. The holders Prada are not in this contest. The 2 racing for the silverware, USA 76, that's Oracle. Against them, the representatives from Switzerland, Alinghi. And on this 3rd leg, it is still Alinghi, retaining a very dominant position.
Coming. A lot of breeze coming on us now.
Well, looking at the boats going
Much
upwind
easier to do it now.
on starboard, it'd be good to get a bit of feedback from the guys out on the water. In these semi-finals, Oracle looked to be a little bit more, a bit tippier. She was heeling over a wee bit more. Ed, in terms of heel angle, does she look any more tippier than Alinghi as they go up the windward beak?
At the moment, they don't look so different than they did in the last round. But on the first weather leg, it certainly seemed like Alinghi had more power for most of that at the time that we saw them. And I think some of that was just position against the breeze and getting into the new breeze first and so forth. But right now, I'd almost say Oracle's a little more tipped over than Alinghi, which is kind of what we're used to seeing. but the breeze is well up. It's up 15 knots now, and on the first beat it was only blowing about 9.
You take the pin out? Yeah.
Probably a little more left.
A lot of spectators out here today. Crafts of all shapes and sizes after the disappointment of firing the blank yesterday.
Coming up for a 40.
Very big spectator fleet.
One boat length. We can go here, there now. We're laying it.
So that's Brad Butterworth. We're laying it, we're going to cast. So here goes Alinghi now. Actually, it was interesting that a lot of discussion on laser rangefinders, but if we think back to Brad Butterworth and all the images we've seen of him, not only in this regatta, but previous regattas, he's had his hockey puck around his neck all the time. He uses that hand-bearing compass, so this change is nothing for him. It's just more of the same.
Well, all the afterguards will be using a hand-bearing, you know, to determine when they're on ley line, along with the computer program on board. The rangefinder doesn't do a lot to help them there, but the difference that they're experiencing is relative speed. You know, that's where they have trouble. Use that laser to see where the other boat is and how you're going against them, and it gives you very accurate results.
We'll lay it.
It's coming there, back.
I don't think there's any question today how they're going. Alinghi is well ahead, and it seems like gaining more than not.
Yeah, I'll just wait it. Yeah.
Well, just there, Warwick, okay?
We have to lap around this.
No, don't let it off.
You'd have to shoot up around the mark here to do it okay. This is mark number 3, halfway through this race 1 of the Prada Cup final 2003. Alinghi here with the hoist, leading by 1 minute 23 at Mark 2.
Long way to go, long way to go. Easy sheet. Long way to go on the halyard. Long way to go on the halyard. Long way to go on the halyard.
These guys are tough. We got about 2 meters to go on the halyard, and they're
Josh Belsky is absolutely laying in to the rest of the crew for that.
That definitely wasn't as good of a rounding as they had last time.
Curtis,
Really nice.
have you seen the poor guy around the brace with the pole?
In the right direction and great moment for breeze.
Got to get the poor guy off. Yep.
So Alinghi taking off under the asymmetrical spinnaker out to the left. Meanwhile, Oracle's still coming up to the mark.
Back down to only 12 knots of wind speed now, Peter, so it's a little softer than it was for a while.
Pretty close to it.
Mark 3, halfway. Oracle trailing by 123 at the last mark. Has made a gain of 5 seconds down to 180.
Well, the men in red have got nothing much to grin about at the moment. They're still there doing whatever they can. But for the crew of Oracle USA 76, there's no joy at all. Race 1, first to 5 points challenges for the America's Cup.
Yeah, I think it looks lighter that way, lighter over there. Good pressure here.
Barring some sort of miracle or major accident, it's Alinghi who'll take the first blood.
Get ready, guys. Four-deck team thinking about it.
It's interesting that Chris Dixon stayed on the helm. We haven't seen Peter Holmberg steer any boat other than the pre-start and the start. Soon after that, Chris Dixon has steered the boat. Now, we can see here
Bad place to stand, Cam.
the staysail on board Oracle being rolled up. It's on a roller. The staysail is there to try and add a bit more projected sail area
So wait this one out,
to the package.
Light for a second, and another cell coming to you in about 5, 10, 15.
There's Peter Holmberg.
The staysail there rolled up. in anticipation of a jibe.
43, is this a good time?
Yeah.
Great jibe, transfer.
There we
He goes
hear
as well.
Holmberg and Dixon discussing the jibe. Alinghi in the distance there, jibing simultaneously. Jenniker's going around the front of the boat. Mainsail coming through. New runner there being pulled on. Both boats executing good jibes. Alinghi just in these shifty conditions, staying in phase. On board Alinghi.
Glenn, I got the impression,
trimming.
Glenn, I got the impression in the jibe there that Alinghi started the jibe slightly behind Oracle, and yet after the completion of the jibe, Alinghi's Jenica was filled. She was the first Jenica to fill. So crew work on board Alinghi looks very sharp.
I think you're right, Peter, and it's certainly what we've come to expect. But the amazing thing is, when you watch this, is just the standard. The difference in standards between the crews is so minimal. And if we were to see club racers out here trying to execute the same manoeuvres, I'm quite sure, with no disrespect to the average club racer, we'd see a very, very different manoeuvre.
Oh, the level of crewing and manoeuvres of the boats, fantastic. And you know, the other crew that I put in the mix in terms of quality with these two teams was the team on One World. They were a wonderful crew.
Well, talking about the crew work on board Alinghi, just a short time ago, or we have noticed, in fact, some quite spectacular crew work. Some of it not intentional, some of it sort of recovery work. Have a look at this. You'll see
Staysail up on the foredeck of Alinghi being clipped in. So Bauman clipping the stay, and over the side it went. Now we'll see plan B as the team come forward to retrieve the sail. A sail in the water very quickly, it can turn a bit ugly for you.
So flying tackle there to save it.
We've gone forward, but he sort of got this puff and sort of came BMG wise. He came into us a little bit. He's jibing.
First race of the final of the Louis Vuitton Cup 2003 has been very one-sided. Oracle doing well at the start, getting the side they wanted, the pin end, but from then on, really, when it came to the meeting on that first leg, it was Alinghi who hung in there, got the advantage of the wind shift, and with that combined with boat speed, has managed to pull ahead and stay ahead of Oracle.
Very even across the course for strength on that.
About 5 minutes to go to the bottom mark. Quick drink, hot work on the foredeck.
Which jib do you think we should go for? Looking.
Butterworth talking about there the Genoa selection for the upwind leg.
Okay.
They have a range of options, both in cloth weight and in sail shape. And depending on the wind speed that they have, they'll make that choice. Staysail coming down. Now, Ed, I just noticed there the Genoa came up on deck on board Alinghi, and it was a brick sail, so it wasn't necessarily immediately ready to be used. Now, we can see it there on the foredeck. Do you think they're going to pull out another new sail when they're so far in the lead?
There's a big right-hander there. It's 10-degree right-hander.
That's one way to look at it, Peter, or it could actually be a sail they brought along for weight, but is a secondary sail that they weren't expecting to race with today. But since they have this comfortable margin, they may be putting up an older sail. So it's hard to know without being there in the middle of it. Coots is masterful at minimizing the damage when he doesn't win the start, and that's exactly what happened today. They minimized it, tacked away, took the first little shift back, and all of a sudden they were in the game again on Alinghi.
by minimising, you're suggesting by staying on the hip rather than actually braking with a split tack start.
Well, that's right. For instance, at about 25 seconds to go, both boats were luffing head to wind, and it could have been an easy time for Alinghi to tack and go for the right-hand end of the line to have maximum speed at the gun. But they would have also been 2 lengths behind because of the bias on the starting line. So they didn't do that. They hung in there knowing they were going to have to tack away just after the start, but minimizing the distance between the boats so that the angle of the shift, the geometry of the shift, didn't benefit Oracle any more than necessary.
Spike any moment. There it is, and the drop aboard Alinghi.
Get out of it, Jack, get out of it.
Mark 4. The signal sound in the background of a course change to 035 as Russell Coote brings Alinghi back on the wind again as they go into beat number 3. This is leg number 5 of 6. So they're into the final windward leeward, or for non-sailors, into the final lap.
Got more running than 5? Because I know.
Hoist on the headsail going up aboard Alinghi. Aboard Oracle, rather. So any moment now, we will have the drop.
Wait for it, guys. And go straight.
Here's the drop aboard Oracle. Alinghi leading by 118 at Mark 3, the halfway mark. Here at Mark 4, click over 1 minute on the Louis Vuitton clock. And still counting. They click off at 1 minute and 7 seconds. So it is a gain of 11 seconds to Oracle, who now trail by 1:11.
And Peter, that's just a little more than 2 boat lengths, which is kind of what we anticipated at the top end there. Boat speed-wise, if the boats are sailing the shifts the same way, the speed is only going to make up a little bit of difference if one boat's faster than the other. A couple of boat lengths is a good example on a long leg like this, 3-mile leg. But the wind shifts are the things you have to play correctly to make your big gains. And that's what happened on the first run down, was Alinghi got the advantage of that one big shift with the pressure filling in and stretched out to a huge lead. And now, even though Oracle seems to be just a little quicker downwind, it's not anywhere near enough to gain back what was lost by Oracle in that shift.
Okay, gonna mix it up, Pete?
Mix it
Hey, ready, sir?
And Dixon talking about his plan to mix it up. He wants to do a few tacks. There goes the first one. See if they can engage Alinghi and see if maybe Alinghi will make some sort of boat handling mistake.
The old traditional hand-bearing compass there being used by Ernesto Bertorelli. The laser rangefinders have been ruled to be illegal, but we still see on the back of the boat there, commonly called the goose, on board Oracle. It'll be interesting to know
if there's anything
what the actual function of that thing is. I know there's been a lot of discussion around the event of what is the function of that piece of equipment on board Oracle.
Maybe it is the drinks carrier now.
Tacking.
Well, the situation remains the same with Alinghi leading Oracle. They've led pretty much throughout this first race of the Louis Vuitton Cup final. And I know that PJ and Ed are out there just taking guesses at what the what the delta might be at each mark rounding, and I understand that PJ was spot on with his 1 minute and 7 seconds for the 4th mark rounding, Ed. So what's your estimate for the 5th?
Well, you know, PJ gets a lot of support out here to get those times just right. Where do you think it comes from, John?
Yes, I know you've been telling him, Ed, so I won't put you in that position again.
Thanks so much, sir. How's that? Well, never mind. I won't ask about your team from wherever that town is. One thing I do notice out here is that we are really getting a much steadier breeze. Suddenly, our wind range is like 5-6 degrees back and forth. Nothing like the 40 and 50 degree stuff we had earlier. We're up to 16 knots of wind. The race course is quickly shrinking for Oracle. We just heard Peter Holmberg a couple of minutes ago say, you know, do we want to take some more risk on this downwind leg, maybe shoot off one side of the course? So they're realizing that they're running out of time.
Yeah, Mike, I guess.
Brad Butterworth now says we're there, so that means Russell Coots tags. Coots and Butterworth sort of communicate by osmosis a bit. They've sailed together for so long and they speak in half sentences. And then, of course, the issue of which sail. Mark number 5 going into the last leg of the race 1 of the Louis Vuitton Cup final. And here comes the hoist from Alinghi. With his lead at every mark. Here's Josh Belsky.
Okay, I'm going, go.
I don't reckon we should change ratios.
Let's go, Ricky.
Here comes the tack on Oracle. Remember, they trail by 1 minute and 11 seconds at Mark 4. Now going into Mark 5.
Overstood here, Moose.
Overstood here, Moose. That's the voice of Peter Holmberg, who was talking to Mike Sanderson, whose nickname is Moose. And overstood means they've gone a little bit too far.
And Peter, he's not being critical there. He's telling the main sheet trimmer that the fact is we're overstood, so you should understand that and can help the boat go better by not trimming the main in all the way for a maximum upwind angle.
Mark 5, Oracle trail Alinghi by 1 minute and 36 seconds, again to Alinghi from 1:11 out to 1:36. So that's 25 seconds.
Yeah, let's do both ways now.
Into the last leg of the race now. The wind is up to 16 knots, beautiful sailing conditions. Alinghi with a huge advantage of 400 meters that they created earlier in the race, particularly with a couple of maneuvers in leg 1 and very definitely in leg 2. And they've capitalized from there to be very comfortable as they head for home in the finish race 1.
He's jiving. Okay, we'll just stand by. He just carries on. We're happy here with quite a headed breeze at the moment.
3 and 2.
Pretty relaxed on board Alinghi, and has been for a while now as they sense
He jives back. Better.
Late jives, huh?
that it's race 1 with their name alongside.
That's a shocker.
That's what he's trying all the time.
Watching what's happening on board Oracle as well.
And it is a shocker. What they're commenting on is this jibe on board Oracle. And, you know, for a crew with the high standards, just if you get the timing and the rotation of turn not quite right, it's a helming and trimming coordination. If you don't get it right, the spinnaker or the Jenica in this case will collapse.
Just over a couple of minutes to the finish now.
Problem is just going down this chute, you know, because they don't want, or whatever. It'll be controversial and go through the crowd or down the chute. Make the harbour master happy.
Sail through the channel with the chute, that's fine.
Right now, that's a... yeah. Yes.
So that's Brad Butterworth talking to
The
Yacht.
pinch is a bit upwind of the boat.
Yeah.
We're getting very close now.
Just laying the boat now.
They're just trying to plan their escape through the finish line. As you can see, quite a few boats out here piering. It gets pretty thick just after you cross the finish line. You try and take your kite down, and you got to escape through there. There's a narrow range that you can sail and be safe.
This is going to be a big win to Alinghi by over 400 metres over a minute.
Certainly the biggest margin between these boats that we've seen, and one of the biggest margins of the series.
That's it.
So there'll be questions about should Oracle attack 100 or 200 metres earlier on that first beat to nail home the advantage they had. Frankly, when they tacked, I thought it was good, and I thought they would have been able to cross. But it didn't happen, and Alinghi did very well
the sheet is better, huh?
come out of that trial sprint. So here we are aboard race control, headed by Peter Reggio from Connecticut in the United States with a vast army of volunteers from the Bucklands Beach Yacht Club under Merv Appleton, who've done a magnificent job. And volunteers from yacht clubs right across the Auckland metro area and other parts of New Zealand.
Nah, we were snookered. Nah.
The finish, race 1, Louis Vuitton Cup Final 2003. Alinghi, skippered by Russell Coutts, takes the gun.
They will.
For a very comfortable win. How much of this win and the size of it is due to boat speed, and how much to tactics and just being on the right side of a couple of key wind shifts?
Yeah, very good.
To answer that, we'll need another couple of races really to get a handle on it properly.
That was the plan.
Yeah. That's the right answer really here, because there's so much that happened in those first two legs. You just can't be sure.
Not often get such a race.
It's Ernesto Bertarelli.
We just had to transit on
going through the crew, shaking hands. He is the navigator, but he is the syndicate boss and patron here.
Breeze helped us a lot, huh? I wouldn't believe it.
Man, that was a show of strength off the line.
I tell you, where you saw, we ended up like 20 degrees higher afterwards. So
Brad Butter was saying there was a show of strength off the line, but Jochen Schumann saying the breeze helped us a lot. So really, Jochen joined our conversation here and reinforces what Ed and I are leading to.
A minute right there.
So Oracle skipper by Chris Dixon come down to the line. And they finish 1 minute and 24 seconds behind.
You know, Peter, it's a hard call on a start like that because the pin was so favored and it was so important to be off of that end of the line to be ahead early. But as soon as they crossed the line, the breeze started to come back to the right. And when you expect that sort of a situation, you almost don't want to win the start in the position that Oracle did, because you don't have the ability to tack and get to that right-hand shift. Alinghi, even though it didn't appear that they were happy with that position, that they would have preferred to be left, but they did take advantage of the right-hand shift as soon as it came.
Race committee, Alinghi.
So from a fascinating start with Oracle doing a very good job at the pin end, but Alinghi minimising the situation, but getting the favoured starboard hand side. It was Alinghi who came out best of that trial of strength as both boats held on to starboard, going out to the left on Mark 1, and Alinghi in the end rounding by 47 seconds. And then Oracle jibing away on leg 2 was another decisive move to allow Alinghi to go out to 123 at the end of the second leg. And from then on, Alinghi in control to wrap race 1 up by 1 minute 24 seconds.